What if Mars isn't our best option for a new home, and Elon actually is wrong about his dream? Give me a few minutes and I will show you why Elon's plan might be heading in the complete wrong direction. Mars became the default dream because it looks doable, right? A day on Mars is basically Earth length, 24 hours, 39 minutes. There are polar caps, a thin CO2 atmosphere that we can actually imagine to terraform. For decades, the terraforming playbook has sounded a lot like this. Darken the poles, station orbital mirrors to melt CO2 and water ice, and brew super greenhouse gases in factories to jumpstart that warming effect, and maybe even redirect ammonia-rich comets to add nitrogen. And that is while we power terraform under domes as the air thickens. But there are actually numerous issues to be found here. For a start, Mars lacks a strong enough global magnetic field which is essential for helping to protect any life forms from cosmic rays. Also, its air is whisper thin, 95% CO2 at a pressure less than 1% of Earth's, and that means radiation and life support will be shrouded in headaches from day one. That's not even considering the logistics of attempting to terraform an entire planet, which we'll look at very soon. But here's the curveball. Look at little old Venus, second planet from the Sun. Venus is almost Earth's twin in terms of size and gravity, and that's at about 0.9 Gs, which means your bones, your muscles, and fluids behave far more naturally than they would on low G Mars. Over decades, that could be the difference between visiting and actually thriving. Venus is closer to the Sun, and you might think, well, too close, but we'll get to that later. Its proximity to the Sun actually means the available solar energy is huge here, and that's very, very useful. But here's the thing. If you step out onto Venus's surface right now, you're toast within seconds. We're talking 465 degrees Celsius, which is hotter than Mercury, the closest planet to the Sun. And on top of that, a crushing pressure of 92 times that of planet Earth. That's like standing a kilometer underwater inside a toxic haze of sulfuric acid. Yeah, it doesn't sound like a nice place to set up camp, does it? You, your suit, your lander, cooked, crushed, and corroded in seconds. But here's the ultra cool and the unexpected twist when it comes to Venus. 50 to 55 kilometers above the surface, Venus offers an environment weirdly close to sea level Earth. We're talking 1 atmospheric pressure, 20 to 30 degrees Celsius, and still of course around 0.9 Gs. NASA's HAVOC concept proposes that crewed airships cruise this specific layer of Venus. Essentially, we're talking about cloud cities here where humans live inside a buoyant habitat that floats in the dense air. The atmosphere itself becomes your ocean, your city is a ship. And at this level in the atmosphere, there is apparently ample shielding from solar winds and cosmic rays, and that's due to the dense atmosphere. Living above the clouds in Venus actually does beat burrowing under Mars and attempting to live in its radioactive soils. We have normal-ish pressure here, Earth-like temperatures, Earth-like gravity, and sunlight for power. In other words, Venus's worst features are actually below your feet, far down below, and you never need to go down there, of course. But saying that, it could act as a kind of good punishment for the worst of the worst criminals in our new Venus cloud societies. Just dropship them right down to the surface. Okay, maybe that's a bit overkill. But there is something people rarely ever question in regard to Elon's plan for inhabiting Mars. It's the psychological factor. Humans aren't just lungs and bones. We're minds that actually are wired for safety, of course, so sunlight, rhythm, a real horizon to look at. Mars fights you on everything. Start with the gravity. Well, we have 0.38 Gs, which we simply don't know what decades of partial gravity will do to the bones, the hearts, the vestibular system. And something as uncertain as this can become a daily mental tax when you're deciding whether to raise kids, train athletes, or even plan long careers here. So the first few settlers will be true lab rats. They will be complete test guinea pigs. And then of course there's the radiation. With no global magnetic field, Mars will bathe the colonists in a steady drizzle of high energy particles. Curiosity's RAD instrument measured roughly 0.67 to 0.7 MSVs a day. That's on the order of around 240 to 300 MSVs a year. Now, Mars' surface dose of radiation at that 0.67 to 0.7 is about 100 times Earth's natural background radiation. And that's roughly getting about 6 to 7 chest x-rays per day every single day on Mars. Now, you can try and shield habitats here on Mars, but every EVA, every greenhouse wall, every commute becomes a calculation. Living on a radiation budget isn't just a medical problem, it becomes a psychological issue. It becomes pretty heavy. Finally, the terraforming reality check undercuts morale. Even if you could thicken the air, Mars lacks a protective magnetosphere. MAVEN shows the solar wind strips atmospheres, especially during storms, so terraforming without a shield is like building a sandcastle in a tide. Proposals exist for an artificial magnetic shield at Mars's sun L1, but that is a civilization-scale engineering problem before terraforming even starts. Practically, that makes the whole makeover feel, if not pointless, then precariously insane. Elon does want boots on Mars fast. That makes sense for momentum and inspiration. But if the question is, where can humans live with the fewest psychological compromises and the most available power, then Venus's cloud layer deserves to move from sci-fi footnotes to Plan A prime, in my opinion. NASA engineers have already sketched out credible airship architectures. The physics at this altitude is friendly, and the energy budget is generous. So maybe Mars isn't the only red planet in town. Maybe humanity's future truly is one floating above Venus. But if you want to keep your education journey going, just click one of those videos on screen. But until next time, stay curious.